Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube video. So in this video we will build the Nuxt chat app using the Nuxt and Nuxt UI. For the UI we will use the Nuxt UI and Socket.io. So basically we will you will also learn what is basically the Socket.io as well. So I will not start the coding part. I will first explain what is Socket.io and it's a the different methods of Socket.io. So you will completely understand and you will be able to use Socket.io in your own projects. So let's see the demo. And first of all I have to enter the username. I can say Hafiz 1 and we have the different rooms predefined. Nuxt installation, let's join that. This is the current UI. Here this is the current room name and here this is the current user. So let's install have another client and we will be able to see the notification here, but the condition is the name should be the room name should be same. So I can say Hafiz 2, not this one, Hafiz 2, join Discord, and see Hafiz has joined the chat. Here now we have the two users. As soon as this new user was added, the users was automatically updated here and here as well. But if you see, this is active user here in Hafiz 1 and here Hafiz 2 is the active user. So now let's send the message, hello Hafiz 1. This is the sender style and this is the basically receiver style, hello Hafiz 2. See, so there are three different styles. For admin message or kind of notification we have this style. For as a receiver we have this style, and for a sender, if we are sending the message, we have this style. Let's leave the leave Nuxt installation. You will see the notification Hafiz 1 has left the chat. That's it. Now let's come to the discussion part. Before going to the code part, I will explain how things are working, because I checked the YouTube videos. Most of them were not explaining how things are working behind the scenes. So they were starting the direct code part. So instead of that, I will try to explain things, how things are working, so you guys can also use within your own projects. So first of all, uh, there are two protocols we will discuss here, WebSockets and HTTP. Both of them are communication protocol, communication between client and server. So what is client and server in simple terms? I will not be, I will try to be simple as much as I can. So I will not explain heavy terms. So in simple terms, you can consider client as browser. This is the, for example, this page is, you can consider as this whole Google, you can consider this Chrome, you can consider as your browser basically. You can consider as client, and server basically your backend code. Just simple, just two simple things. Your backend code is, you can consider as your server, where the backend code is running, and in the client is its simple browser, your browser. In HTTP, what we do, our client will send the request to the server and then server will send the response. It's kind of one-way communication. Server without any request, server will not send any response. So it's you can see this diagram. Client is sending the request to the server and then server is sending us the response back to the client. Imagine that I'm opening the YouTube. So I'm sending, when I will click that, I will send the request to the YouTube backend code, and then YouTube backend code will send me the response, and that response will be shown by the client. For example, I just send the request to the backend code of the YouTube, and now backend code of the YouTube is sending me the response, and that response is basically, let's wait for that. So that's why it is taking time. Yeah. So basically this is the response from the backend of the YouTube. So now let's close that. So I hope you guys understand that. But in WebSocket is that we will have one connection between client and the server, but both can send the request and response. It's kind of two-way communication. You can see this diagram. Client can also request, client can do the request plus response, and same goes to the server. It can send the request and response. It's kind of, for example, when we are in WhatsApp, you can take the example of WhatsApp. Whenever we have the new user within the when we have the new message, so we will get the notification, although we are not sending any request to the backend code. Backend code is automatically sending the notification. So that's you can understand. Now after that, so these are the terms basically we will use. So I will try to explain that. IO, socket, what are these? So basically these are the functions we will use. So IO, it's like a box, and in each box we have sockets. So this you can consider as this whole box as IO, and these three you can consider as sockets. What is socket? Socket has basically two things. You can consider as this one as client and this one as server. So socket is, you can say, is made up of two things. One is client and one is server. And also keep in mind, each socket has its kind of unique ID as well. So what is room? Room is kind of group. Just like in WhatsApp or in Messenger, we have different groups. For example, if you are in university, you guys have different groups for different classes or subjects. For example, we have different we have group for the chemistry, we have a group for the CS, we have a group for the programming class. So in each group we send according to particular nodes. For example, in chemistry group we will send the chemistry nodes. In CS group we will send the CS nodes. You can consider room for, and it has unique sockets as well. So what is emit? Emit is basically event triggering. In simple terms, it is event triggering. Imagine that I am sending the message here, hello. So when I'm sending that, I am triggering the event. So I will use the emit for that. Send that. So it's emit. I emitted the some particular event. You will understand when when we will move to the code part. For now, just try to remember that, or you can simply keep in mind. You will understand this thing completely when we will do this by code. But in simple term, it's we are triggering some event. What is on is basically the event listener of that particular emit thing. So if I send the if I trigger that event, obviously I have to listen that event as well. And how I am listening to that just see the demo here. I trigger the event hello, and in this browser I am on, I'm listening that event in this browser. What is the broadcast? Broadcast is basically when we want to inform all the sockets except which did the IO. So imagine that I am sending the, so try to here, see, this is basically whenever this user will leave the message. Let's use another user as well, for example localhost, the same group view guide. Then you will be able to understand what basically the broadcast means. Here basically it means when we have the new socket here, right, and when I will use the broadcast, basically it will send the event to all these three events, all these three sockets. So now you will be able to, for example, Hafiz 3 and view guide join tab. So now I have the Hafiz join here as well, Hafiz join here as well. So I am broadcasting this event to these two because it belongs to the same room. So this is the concept of broadcast. If we want to inform all the users except that is joining just now, we can use the broadcast. And what is to? To is basically to, if we want to access some particular socket using the ID, we can use the to event. So now let's come to the code part, and you will I hope you will understand these things properly when we will use the in code. Now let's come to the code part. So in order to start the code part, let's come to the Nuxt website, nuxt.com. We can install the project, get started. Node version should be v18 or the newer. So let's come here and I can copy that. So paste that. Instead of project name, I can say Nuxt Socket Chat App. We will use the yarn. No, we will not define the repository. And now let's cd Nuxt Socket. Yes. Now let's open code. Let's open the terminal. Yeah. Let's run the project. Yarn dev. We'll be able to see that. Let's close this one and let's open new one, localhost 3000. As we are using the Nuxt UI, so let's install that as well. I can come to ui.nuxt.com, ui.nuxt.com. Let's come to the installation. As we are using the yarn, so let's come here and let's copy that, and it's still running, but let's for now, yeah, I hope let's preview that, then we can install that. So this is the welcome part. Now let's quit that and I can install that yarn and Nuxt UI, and I think that the next step will be to add this thing to the module. So let's copy that and I can come here in the nuxt.config and here I can paste that. As I'm using the socket.io as well, so I will install that as well. So after that I can run the project. We are done with the installation of the Nuxt UI. We also added in the module as well. Now let's install your add movement for date management. We can also install socket.io. Let's come here in the socket and we can exactly what I have to install. I think it's socket.io and socket.io client. It's here. Yeah, socket.io and socket.io client. No, I think it's image. So socket.io and then socket.io dash client. Socket.io and client. Let's install these three and then we will run the project and start the UI part. As we are using so we are done with the installation. Now as we will use the different pages, so that's why let's create two folders. First will be layout, and here we should have default dot view, and within default it should be simple. There will be no fancy thing. It will be the setup, and then within that I can say slot. Yeah, simple. After that let's create, it should be layouts, not layout, and let's create another folder called pages, and within page we should have index.view, and within that index.view I can simply copy paste some code. Why I'm doing that? Because here the purpose of this video is to show how we can create the socket.io, how we can create the application using socket.io right? So it's not the UI part. So but still I will explain that, and if you didn't understand any UI part, you can comment and I will explain that. It's pretty simple. If you have any basic experience with Nuxt and Tailwind CSS, you will understand. So let's see this. This error will be automatically gone. Instead of countries, it should be rooms or groups. Groups I think. Rooms 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 or groups, it's the same thing. So what exactly we are doing that here, we are using the U card, basically the here. You can come here. Yeah, in layout we have the card, and card have three parts: header, the body part, this one, and this footer thing. So in header, basically we are defining the icon and some discord icon, some heading for that. And within the body part we have form has these two fields and one submit button. So let's preview that. I can before that I think we have to add here as well. So I can say Nuxt layout, and within that Nuxt page, Nuxt page, yeah, there is that. So within that Nuxt page we should have another container, because it should be center container. And I can say here within the container, if we want to customize, you can see that how we can customize that. That's I can show you guys. So in order to customize this, we can say base, and here I can say UI is equal to base, and then I can define my here empty 20. So let's save that and let's see the preview. Your dev. You will be able to see that here, because Nuxt welcome is gone and it should be here. See, this is the home page. So it's quite simple. I can explain the code. I think I already did. Yes, I already did. This is the top header, the icon and title, and this is the form, and it's for now it's disabled, but if I enter something it will be enabled and I can do that. And on enter, what I'm doing, we are just pushing this thing to uh, see. Let's sometime it creates problem, because Nuxt use the auto import, so it's related to the TypeScript. So in order to remove this code, we just have to refresh. You can press Control Shift P or Command Shift P, and you will get this kind of menu, and you can say reload video. If I do that, that error will be gone, I hope. And you will also be able to copy this code home page, because it's there is nothing functional here. So you will get that. I will paste the link in the description. You will get that, so you don't have to worry that about that. See, that error is gone. And on submit, I'm just navigating to the chat, and we have to create the chat page, and we are sending the username and the this thing room. And let's create another page which is chat.view, and for UI let's do the following thing. In chat.view we will also paste the basic code. It's just the UI part, I can explain that, but first of all let's see the preview. Let's save that, and if I come here and let's enter some username hobbies 1, if I join that. So this is how chat UI will look like. So I can explain what exactly things are going on. So let's come here, UI card, same, and I added some my own classes to customize this padding, because we don't have any padding. So that's why I removed the padding from the overall card. if I come here if you see we have this padding, so it was default, so I removed the default padding. I come then in the header I have this one thing and this one thing, so that's why there are two divs. This is the one and this is the one, so the flex justify between, and we have this icon, and then we have this title, and here for the room what is this leave thing is doing. If I click on that I will be redirected to home page because I am removing that username and this room name. If I click on that I will be back to here. Let's come back again, half is one, and I am again here. And after that we have this body part where we will have two parts. One is for this kind of, you can say, the sidebar, and here it's the chat part. So let's differentiate between first of all them. So in sidebar we have kind of two section. First for the current room, which is for now nothing, and second thing is the list of users, the current users within the sockets, and we have that. And in sidebar we have the chat, but chat have different things. So we are showing different styles based on that. So first, if you see justify center, if username is equal to this bot message, because this is, you can say, the bot name, so that's why I'm checking if chat dot username is equal to this, then this should be centered, so that's why it is centered. If chat dot username is equal to the current user, basically if I am the sender, this is basically the message from the sender, so that's why it's at the so that at that case, for example, the current user is, I can add that half is one, right? So in chat if I enter half is one, right, we should have at the end one of them. Yeah, see, this is at the end, so that's why it's justify end. And if I am the receiver, this is this user is kind of the receiver, this is the sender, this is the receiver, I received this message from other users, so that's why it's at the start. And after that we have different backgrounds. The conditions are same. For the bot message we have reddish color, for the sender we have this bg primary green, and for the receiver we have dark green. And after that we have this at the end. In the footer part we have the form, and with form we have the input and button. If from this part if you don't understand anything, please let me know. All of these components are from this Nuxt UI. It's I will highly suggest you guys should look into this. It's pretty simple based on the Tailwind CSS, and it's quite useful. And also it is created by the Nuxt team. Nuxt, this new Nuxt documentation is also built on top of that Nuxt UI, so it is recommended by the team as well, and they are maintaining and also adding new components time to time as well. There is pro block as well, you can use for the development purpose, but for obviously production you have to pay for that. Now let's come to this. So now let's come to the original part, and we can start the doing the functional thing on the back end and also on the client side. Let's start the stuff from the client side. First step should be, let's remove this dummy data. Also these users, and on mount it. First of all, let's import that socket. Import from socket IO client, and here I need two things, socket IO, and I need type which is socket. Yes. So now let's define the socket here. Const socket is equal to ref type is basically the socket, the one we just imported, and initial value is undefined. So in on mounted, after checking this this thing, because username and room is compulsory. That's why if you come in the index.view, this button is disabled. But if user try to manually do that, in chat app, we will redirect back him to the home page. So after that, we can define the socket value. Socket dot value is equal to IO, and in IO I have to pass different things. I have to pass not different thing, only one thing, which is path. So path basically, the path of the API. It will be API socket.io. After that, let's do the first step, which is the joining the chat room. So let's add comment join chat room, and we will emit this event from the client side. So the first step, after basically this will create the connection between server code and the client code. Our connection will be built. After that, let's emit the event. If you remember what is emit basically will trigger the event. So now let's do the socket dot value dot emit socket.value.emit join room, and if we are triggering event, obviously we will send the some data as well. So the data will be two things: username and room name. Now let's come to the backend, because we will listen to this event on the backend side. Let's save that for now, and let's come to the backend. What is the backend? Because we are using the Nuxt, so it is the power of the Nuxt. We have our own backend within this server thing. So let's let's add API folder, API, and here this is basically to detect all type of paths. So ts, I can add another folder here as well, which is utils. So basically these utils are for the backend code. So in this here, I have to define base root for this, this one, socket.io. I can come here. In order to define the route, I can say const router is equal to create router. Then I can say router dot get. This is basically to manually define some routes. So I can say socket. If you see, it is giving me the error, so that's why we are defining that socket.io. Here we have the event handler, define event handler, and within event we will pass event, and event type is h3 event, which is we can import that from the h3. Import type from h3, and h3 dot context h3 event. Yeah, here I can say init socket. So it is, for now it's undefined, we have to define that. And after that I can simply say export default use base API and router dot handler. Now let's define this init socket. It will be within the utils index.ts. So let's define the init socket here, but first of all let's import some stuff. Import server from socket.io. Also import type. We can import the type server options, yeah, from socket.io. Let's import the movement as well. Import movement from the movement, and also h3 event as well. Import type from h3. Let's create option object const options, which is partial of server options, yes, is equal to path, not parser, path. And in path what should be? It is API and socket.io, and then we have server client should be false. Now let's create the server. Export const server, sorry, not the server, io is equal to new server, and we can pass the options. Now let's define the init socket. We have to import that. Export const init socket, and which will accept the event, and the type of event is h3 event. If you see here, we are passing that init socket. Within the, we are passing the event, and event type is h3 event. So that's why it will be same. So instead of this const, it should be function, not, sorry. And now first step here is io dot attach event dot node dot res dot socket dot server. It exists, but we can ignore that. Typescript is doing some problem. Event dot node dot res dot socket dot server. So I can add ts ignore. Let me know if you know the solution of this thing, why we should, you know, how we can handle that. So after that I can say io dot on. Remember, on is basically for the listening of the event. So on connection, io on connection, what should we do? Obviously if it is event listener, then we can receive the data as well. So we will receive the socket here, and here I can say type is server option. It's not. Type is socket. And here I can say log vs connected, and let's log in socket dot id. Let's format, and let's now save that, and let's save that as well. Let's rerun that, so you see it was connected, yes. But let's now rerun that. So after the connection, we have this event here in that, and it was logged in. We built the connection, and then on connection, we got the socket and we just logged in as well. Now let's run again yarn dev, and now this we should also listen to this event as well, which we are triggering from the client side. The first step was done, this basically the purpose of this was to build the connection from client side, and the purpose of this was to listen to that particular thing and trigger that. Now within this connection module we will listen to this thing, this join room. So in order to listen, we will use the on. If I come to the chat, what exactly I'm sending in the join room, I'm sending these two things, right? These are the user details. So it means we need here users as well. So how we can do that? First of all, let's create the one file here for the types within the server. I can say types.ts, and here I can copy paste that. User have the ID, username and room. ID we will create from backend. These two things we will receive from the front end. If I save that, and now let's come here in the utils, let's create another file called users.ts, and within that we will have some basic functions. Let's copy paste that. These basically these are pretty simple functions. You can understand that join user to chat. So basically user join, what is this function is doing? It is taking this user and then also returning that user as well. As we are not using any database, so that's why we have our own simple array for managing the users, right? Then user join, it is pushing user to this array and then returning that user as well. What is this get current user is doing? It is we are passing the ID, and based on that ID we will return that user. For example, this user have this users array have two users, one ID is 1 and one ID is 2, other user has the ID 2. So if we pass the get current user ID 2, it will return that user, single user. User leave the chat. If someone is leaving the this users array, we are informing that as well. We will also return that user as well based on the ID. And if I want to get the users of the particular room, you can consider as the WhatsApp group. If we have group and I want to get the users of that, we have the, imagine that we have the, you are in the university class and you guys have CS subject, chemistry subject, and for each subject you have group where you guys send notes to each other. Imagine that you have the chemistry group, and now you want to get the users of that chemistry group. So we will use this function. Let's save this. Let's close these two as well, and I can come here, and now let's listen to that event join room. I can say socket dot on. What's the name of event? Join room. Socket dot on join room. We will also get some data. What's the type of the data? Payload, and its type is user. I have to import that from the import type from import type from types, not types. Yes, and I can say user. So payload, and then let's do the function. We will receive this payload, and here I can say const user is equal to user join. We can get that from the users, and user join, if you remember, we have to pass the user. So how we can do that? In payload, if you check here, we are passing two things, username and room. It means I have to pass the ID as well. So I can say payload, and then for ID I can say socket dot id. Now we have the user, so the current user which is joining the room, right? After that I can say socket dot join, and I can pass the user. So it means now user has joined the particular group. After that, it means now I have to tell, imagine that currently we have two users already within users array or user room. Now obviously we should inform those users. If you have any experience with the WhatsApp group, if you guys add new user, you see some kind of notification that this guy was added and we have the number as well. So now let's do that. So in order to do that, what should we do? We should do the broadcast socket dot to where user dot room. Then, because we don't want to tell everybody, we only want to tell only users of that particular room. For example, if user joined the chemistry group, then we should only inform the chemistry group users that this is your new buddy. There is no purpose of telling to computer guys that there is one user which joined the chemistry group. So that's why it is necessary to use the two. And then we should say broadcast. So broadcast will be first. Broadcast, and then to two, and then emit a message. So here we have the error. So let's fix that. It should not be user only, user.roam. If you see how I got that, if you see there is error, is not assignable to parameter of type string. So that's why I have to pass room. And if we are emitting, then it means we have to send something. So here I can say format message. Let's create this function at the end. Export const format message. So it will take username, which is string, and also text, which is also string. Basically it's not const, it's function. And then what it will return us the formatted message with time, username, text, and then time, moment dot format, and format should be h hour, then minutes, and then am or pm. Now let's use that format message. I have to pass the, because this is the kind of the bot message, so that's why let's define another function here. Const bot name is equal to, it should be this one, the way we are checking the condition. So what's that? Nuxt Chat App admin. Let's copy that. I can come here and let's define that. For username I can pass this one and for the text I can say template strings, and here user dot username has joined the chat. As we are emitting the event message from the backend code, so now let's listen to this in client side, so we will be able to see that in action, because we can't see this thing in action. So let's do that here. So now let's listen to that. Socket dot value dot on message, it means we will receive that as well something. So I can say payload, the type of payload is chat, and let's push that. Chats dot value dot push payload. Now let's save that, and I hope everything will work. So let's close this one and we can enter that from scratch. Localhost 3000. I hope you guys understand that it was pretty simple. Here first of all we defined the sockets, then on backend code we build the connection, right? And after that we then we again came back to here in the client side, we emitted the event, which was we detect that here, and within that we joined, and then we are broadcasting this message, and that broadcast message we are catching that. So we will see the preview here. We are here, and let's join that. I can say office 1 and I join the Discord. Obviously here nothing will happen because we have to join another one, and username should be the room name should be same. And if I come here and I say Hafiz 2, Hafiz 2, we should have some notification here on. Yes, Hafiz 2 has joined the chat. Now if you see, we have some problem. What's the problem? Although we have two users currently, Hafiz 1 and Hafiz 2, so we should have the list of those users here. So it means something is missing. So that's why now let's emit room users as well from the backend code, because users are only on the backend. If you see in our code, there is although we have here users, but we are all the logic related to, and imagine that in real cases we will have obviously some kind of database, and database will run on the backend code. So that's why we have to emit something here within this join room. We have to something to do for the room users as well. So now let's do that. After this broadcast message, let's do socket dot not socket, sorry, io dot to user dot room dot emit. What emit? It should be new event room users, and in room user we should send what things it should have. Sorry, it's not it, there will be, we will send the, it will not be function, it will be object, because we are sending in emit, we have to send some data, so it will be object. And in object we will have room user dot room, and we will have the users. How we can get the users? If you remember, we have this one function get room users based on the room. So let's use that, and here I have to pass user dot room. although it will work, but still let's import that because Nuxt will auto import that, but we can do that. So here I'm passing the room and we'll get that. Now obviously in order to preview this thing, we have to catch this event because we are triggering this event from the backend. Then it means we have to catch that on the front end side on the chat bar. So here I can say socket.value on room users. I can copy that on room users. Payload is two things. First, so instead of this one, it should have, first should have the room, I think. Yeah, it's room and it means string, and then we have the users array. So let's do that. Room, which is string, and then we have the users, which is user array. So it means we can define this current room using the current room. So I can say current room dot value is equal to room payload dot room payload dot room. I think payload is not a good word. I can say response. Yeah, here as well. And same goes to users dot value is equal to users response dot users. Now let's save that and I hope it will work. Let's close that. Let's close that as well. And so we should have new connection. Local has 3000. Hafiz, join Discord. See, now we have the current room. Now we have the list of the users. Now let's create another one. Localhost 3000. Hafiz 2. If I join this, see, now we have the list of two users, Hafiz 1, Hafiz 2, and current room, and here we will have the notification as well. Yes, first thing is done. Now let's handle the if someone is leaving the room. So now let's handle that. So it means first we have to do the stuff on the client side because this thing is happening on the client side. On client side, we will, whenever we are we are closing that window or we are clicking on that button. So we have to trigger the event from the client side. In order to trigger the event, what we will use? We will use the emit. Although we use the event, but as disconnect is kind of the built-in function, so that's why we use on before mount, on before mount, on before unmount, sorry, unmount. So it means either we are closing that window or we are leaving that page. So it means we are disconnecting. So what should I do? We should do socket dot value dot disconnect. Yes, disconnect. Let's save that, and you can also see that here in the, if I do the log disconnect log, if I save that, you will be able to see that. Just check that. If I come here and if I leave that, sorry, see disconnect block. So now let's catch that on the client side. So we should, because if we are removing that, here we should not have that user. If you see, it is adding, so there is some bug. So for example, if I'm closing that, then this user should be removed because it is currently not active. So that's why let's handle that stuff on the backend side. In the index, it will be quite same according to this join stuff. So we can copy that. I can copy that. And keep in mind, it should be within the connection block. I know it's strange, but this thing should be within the connection block. Here let's add comment, join room. Here it should be disconnect. Here I can say on disconnect. So here we will not have this kind of payload. It will be simple. It will be there is no reason payload, but there is no use of that. So that's why we will skip that. So here instead of user join, what should we use? We should use the user leave. User leave. So user leave accept user dot id, not user.id, sorry, it will accept the socket.id, that is the current user, socket.id. We will pass that. So instead of that, let's remove that. We should broadcast that. So instead of, so here we will check, because user leave is also returning that user as well. If you see, first of all it's removing that, because supplies will remove that user from that chat, and also it is returning that as well. So here we will have the user, but let's check that if user exists, then it means we can do these following two things, but obviously we have to change. If user exists, then what should we do? User has left the chat. User has left the chat. We will tell all other users. If you have any experience with WhatsApp groups, if someone leave, each other user can see that. So that's why we have to tell other users this user has left the chat. Now obviously we have to again redefine the users, so that's why we are doing that, and it will not be changed. So let's format and let's save that, and we will be able to see that here. So let's close all of these so we can see the new connection and new leaving start. Localhost 3000. If everything works fine, then we will do the next step and final step, which will be sending the message. Hafiz 1 join Discord. Now let's create another one. Hafiz 2 join. I have the message. Now let's leave that. I should have message that here. Okay, something is wrong here. So here was the mistake. It should not be to the socket, it should be to the IO. We will remove that, and IO dot to that particular room, and then we will emit that. So let's save that, and now let's see the preview. The project is running and I hope it will work. H1. See, now we have only H1. Now let's join by another one. Localhost 3000. H2. See, now we have the list, and here we have the notification. And now if I remove that, oh, if you see I changed nothing. I think it's because of the backend. Some kind of some things are happening. So let's create another. Maybe backend is slow. Maybe that's why. Because if you see I change nothing, but still we have this notification and user was also removed. So maybe it's my because of the internet. I'm not sure. If I join that, I have that user here, and now if I come here and let's leave that, and if I come here, see H3 has left the chat, so it means it is working. So now let's do the final stuff, which is the sending the message. So imagine that where we should trigger the event, because sending the message will do it is related to the front end side. So we should trigger the event from the front end, and we should listen that thing to the back end. So let's come to the chat part, and yeah, here we have the submit function. Within that, here I can simply say socket dot value dot emit chat message, and I can pass message dot value, and then I can say next tick, and within that it should be await. Once it's done, and message dot value should be equal to empty. Let's save that. And now in order to preview this whole thing, obviously we have to cache that here as well. So here after the joining room I should say handle chat message socket dot on chat message. Obviously we will receive the payload, and payload is string, and here I can say, so now we have to tell each client of the room that you guys have a new message. So in order to do that, it means we have to get the user is equal to get current user, and I have to pass socket dot id. And if we have the user, what should I do? If we have the user, I should send that thing io dot to user dot room dot emit message, message, and within the message we should have format message, and format message I can say message the payload, basically the payload, but first step is the username. So let's do the user dot username, and then I can send the payload, the message we received. So now let's save that, and let's recheck that IO to that room, and then we are emitting for everyone. And so basically the purpose of this to emit event for this thing, this room, so it will be for everyone. That's why we are using that. If because the user which is sending it should also have that message, so that's why we are using this instead of broadcast. So now let's save that, and I hope everything will work. So first of all, let's little bit wait. So our backend code is still in the running phase, and I can close that, I can leave that, and I can first of all let's refresh that. User 1, let's join that. Now let's have another room, localhost 3000, user 2. Yes, we have the notification. Hello user 2, I hope it will work. Here we have, yes. Hello user 1. Yes, it is working. So we did it. I hope you guys learn how we can use the socket with Nuxt, and how sockets basically work, because I tried my best to explain things step by step. I was doing step by step each and everything. So I hope you guys learn something, and if you want me to improve something, please let me know. If you learn something, please like video, share the video, and subscribe my YouTube channel. Till next video, bye bye.